Welcome back to another great learning video. In this case, what we're going to do is we're going to touch on how to build multi-criteria nested if functions. We're going to show you when to use an if function versus, say, a VLOOKUP function or an XLOOKUP function. Now, we're going to first start by analyzing the data to see what we're doing. It's always good to just get a perspective of what you're doing. Without perspective, you're going to be lost sometimes, so it's really important. We'll look at each section of the spreadsheet we're analyzing. In this case, it's just one section. So let's pop over to Excel and take a look at it. So in this case, I put it all on one page, and I gave one example. In this example, we're going to sell dollar value of Halloween costumes or Halloween candies and things like that. We're going to pretend we're a Halloween store. And what we're going to do is we're going to say, here's the commissions table. So the commission table will be over here. I'll put it in yellow so we know exactly where it is. And in this case, what we're going to say is, all right, so if we sell $100 worth, you get 10% bonus. $200, you get 20% bonus. $300, you get 30% bonus. Really, anything over $300, you're going to get 50% of it. So the idea is you sell more, you make more. So we're going to build this nested if function. But we're going to build it into 3 steps. So we're going to take example, we're going to do the $100 threshold, the $200 threshold, and the $300 threshold. We really have the cap, and we're going to build it using if statements. The first time we do it, we're going to build this if statement. I'll put it into the function builder. And what we did a logic test. We said B7, and we fully parameterized this equation. So we said B7, which is this value, is less than or equal to 100, which is, just 100. We just use that for reference. We could have clicked the 100 in here. We could have actually clicked it right there, less than that. Then if it is, what we're going to do, we're going to take the value in B times the 10% value. Now it's fully parameterized, and I'm simply going to put a placeholder. So if it's true, we're going to run the multiplication. If it's false, we're going to put a placeholder. All right, so that worked out pretty well. Let's test it. So the first one is 100. There it goes. Voila. It met the criteria for 100. It's a true equation. Let's go ahead and do the second one. We're going to do it in the cell next to it. And in here, you see it's still open. So we said B7 equals 200. And we'll fully parameterize it to equal 200. Then we're going to do the same thing, the 20% times the B7 value, which is going to give us a result. If it's false, we're going to say 2. Just as the second iteration where we're going to put that as a placeholder. It's our second placeholder. All right, so this is good. Let's try 200. Okay, that's good. We got $40, so good to sell candy. You can make a lot of money. Now, let's go for the third and final if. You don't need to do 4 ifs even though you have 4 conditions, because you can always use the false as one of your conditions. So what we do here, if you say B7 is less than or equal to 300, we parameterize it by clicking 300. That way we can change the thresholds if we want. And we say it'll be, guess this, the 30% times the B7. Okay, so we expect that. And then on the false condition, we're going to lerp out and say, because really this is the end of our table. And because it's the end of our table, we'll just simply say the B7 number times the 50%, because that's the threshold, that's the upper limit. So really, if you think about it, 301 that goes up from 301 to infinity is basically going to give you 50% of candy. So you're going to want to sell a lot of candy. And we'll just say done. So let's test that one. So 300, it gave us 90, and 400, it gave us 200, so you make a lot more money. 500, it's 250. The 50% rule is coming in effect pretty well. So now, how do we deal with this? How do we create this if statement? Well, so I broke it into the 3 components that I wanted to, and so I'll just copy the first component over, and I'll paste it in here. That was fine. I'm going to grab the second component, but this time I'll copy. I'm not going to copy out the equal sign. I'm going to do everything but the equal sign. Hit the X and come back over. See where the 1 is? Don't do any parentheses or commas. Just replace the 1 with the second nested if, which is fine. And then in the third condition, I'm going to grab the equation. Remember, leave the equal sign. You already said one equal sign per equation. Then we hit X. We come back in. I have a final placeholder here for the second nesting I'm going to do. And I paste it in, and voila, it does it. So let's test it. We put 100. You notice there's a pass condition on all three, but it does the first one, because what happens is the if statement will go until it hits its limit. So as soon as it finds the answer, it stops. So that worked. 200. Yep, that went to 1. It went to the condition, but it went to the 40 as it's supposed to. 300. Yep, it did what we wanted to. It went to 90. And 400. It went to the 200 vessel. So it worked just fine. So that is how you build a nested if function using a step approach. Because really, if you didn't do that, you'd have to write this entire equation out. And it can be quite tricky. And you'd have to know all the commas for it. And you can do this, but I find that being able to leverage all the logic statements and all the ifs, it also is better than doing the VLOOKUP. Because look at the VLOOKUP. VLOOKUP works really fine, right? See the 50%? We did a VLOOKUP example. VLOOKUP the B7 against this table range and return a value. But how about if it was 401? Oh, it errors. See, the VLOOKUP, and you nested VLOOKUP, is just not going to give you the right value. It's going to error out on you. So it doesn't really work. So in this case, the nested if was the way to go. I'll make another video for the low, the good, and the great next, and show how to build the nested if just for those, which would be a lot of fun.